The last time college football saw a game end in a tie, the year was 1995, 4 years before I was born myself. Ironically, it was played between my Wisconsin Badgers and Illinois at Camp Randall and has gone down as the worst game to ever be played in Camp Randall history. This is the story of that game and the history of ties. You won't want to miss this one. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college and spring league football content like this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know what your favorite college football game to end in a tie is in the comment section below. The idea of a tie in football has been controversial since its inception of overtime in 1882. Baseball had begun using extra innings, and football felt like it needed its own overtime rules. So they decided to add extra time onto the clock to see if, in this version of extra innings, the game could be decided. That did not stop Princeton-Yale to still end in a 0-0 tie after the extra time was added, so Walter Camp pitched his own idea. Camp pitched a downs and distance idea that would force offenses like Princeton to use it or lose it. A year later, Camp began adjusting the point value of scoring plays. In 1882, Yale had led the country with 6.5 points per game. 1883, Yale would lead with 60 points per game. They hoped adjusting how many points a score was would reduce the chances of a tie, but that would not stop Yale and Princeton from tying once again in 1883, when they were still tied 0-0. They would also meet again for the championship game in 1886, where the game was called at half with Yale leading 4-0 due to heavy rain and referees showing up late. The game did not declare a winner. Overtime rules would not be figured out for over 100 years, and during that period we would see some major historical football games end in ties. In 1905, Fairmount and Washburn ended in a 0-0 tie where the first use of the forward pass occurred. In 1922, the Rose Bowl, which featured Cal and Washington and Jefferson, ended in a 0-0 tie as Washington and Jefferson, with only 11 players on their roster, held the highest scoring offense in the country to 0 points. 1946 saw Notre Dame and Army enter the game ranked number 2 and 1, respectively, and saw the Cadets enter the game on a 25-game winning streak. This game would end in a tie, and Notre Dame would be voted as the AP National Champions. 2 years later, an 0-8 Navy team would tie an 8-0 Army team at 21 apiece to ruin their rivals' perfect season. The game of the century would be brought out for the second time when number 1 Notre Dame took on number 2 Michigan State in East Lansing in 1966. Notre Dame had the ball in Michigan State's territory with a minute left. Instead of going for the win, they would opt to run the clock out, which led to the game finishing with a 10-10 tie. Notre Dame would go on to be voted the national champions by a majority of polls. In 1973, Michigan and Ohio State would also tie 10-10, leading to the athletic directors of the Big Ten voting Ohio State the conference champions and a spot in the Rose Bowl, and the Wolverines without a bowl game. This led to Bo Schembechler successfully lobbying for one-team rules to change, and the subsequent explosion in bowl games we see today. In 1984, Texas went up 10-0 at half over Oklahoma and Red River in driving rain conditions. The Sooners would fight their way back and took a 15-12 lead. With 10 seconds remaining and trailing by a field goal, Texas took one last chance at the end zone before a field goal attempt. Texas's Todd Dodge appeared to be intercepted in the end zone, but officials ruled it incomplete. Texas subsequently kicked a field goal, and the game ended in a tie between the two top-ranked teams. In 1988, number 6 Auburn chose to kick a field goal to tie the game with 1 second left, rather than go for the win against number 4 Syracuse in the Sugar Bowl. It also cost Syracuse a chance at the national title, ending their 11-0 season at 11-0-1. Throughout the history of college football, teams chose to rather play for the tie than go for the win, which is not why you play the game. In October of 1989, Iowa and Michigan would end in a tie, leading to Schembechler exclaiming, "What a waste of time!" in his post-game handshake with Iowa head coach Hayden Fry. Fry said overtime being a part of top-level college football would have given the fans more football for their money. It would have taken off the negative feeling that are experienced by both teams when they have a tie. The Des Moines Register would write after the game, "The current atmosphere among college administrators is dead set against any escalation of college football, including overtime periods. The rationale is that the university exploits athletes in overtime without overtime wages would be further exploitation." At this time, every other division of college football had overtime rules for the regular season game, just not Division 1A schools. With the invention of conference championships in 1992, so too was the invention of the college football overtime rules for said conference championship games. The NCAA had adopted the Kansas overtime system, which was adopted in 1971 for Kansas high school games, and had each team get a chance to score from the 10-yard line. For college, you started on the 25-yard line. In 1994, the choke at Doak occurred when number 7 Florida State came back from a 31-3 score against number 4 Florida. Florida State would have won the game by going for 2, but head coach Bobby Bowden could not stomach the idea of losing by 1 after coming back, so he decided to play for the tie. Seminoles would go on to play Florida in the Sugar Bowl, beating them 23-17. In 1995, the NCAA would pass that overtime rules would be put in place for regular season games. Starting in 1996, it would be tested in every bowl game in 1995. But that would not stop college football from having one last game that ended in a tie. The reason for this video. The date is November 25th, 1995. It is the regular season finale for both Wisconsin and Illinois, and is the senior day for the Badgers. It is a nice 40-degree day at Camp Randall, with it not being too windy. Wisconsin is looking to end their season on a positive note, entering the game with a 4-5-1 record. They had tied Stanford earlier that season 24-24 on the road during week 2 of the season. They were coming off a tough 33-20 home loss to rival Iowa the week before, which knocked them out of bowl contention. Starting quarterback Darren Bevel had helped turn a poorly performing Badger program around and helped kickstart the team under head coach Barry Alvarez years before. Heading into Alvarez's 4th season, they were 11-22. That was until Bevel's arrival, when he would throw for 2,390 yards, a team record at the time, and 19 touchdowns, helping the Badgers to their first Big Ten title and Rose Bowl appearance in 31 years in 1993, a game they won. 2 years later, Wisconsin was struggling with a young offensive line and inconsistent run game. Bevel was playing in his last game as a Badger. Illinois, on the other hand, was fighting for bowl eligibility. They were sitting at 5-5, were led by defensive linemen Kevin Hardy and Simeon Rice, who would eventually be taken 2nd and 3rd overall in the 1996 NFL Draft. Athletic Director Ron Gunther had spent the days before the game furiously brokering bowl options. He proposed a scenario. If Illinois and Iowa won their last games and Michigan State lost in the finale, Iowa would go to the Sun Bowl, Michigan State to the Liberty Bowl, and Illinois to the Independence Bowl. The Liberty Bowl was where Illinois was expected to end up, a game they had played in the year before against East Carolina. The bowl organizers didn't want a rematch. Michigan State head coach Nick Saban, though, didn't want the Spartans playing in the Liberty Bowl either, as they had had a bad experience at the bowl the last time they played there. If Michigan State had won its last game, it would have gone to the Sun Bowl, and Iowa would have accepted the Liberty Bowl, bringing up the Independence Bowl for Illinois. But a Spartans loss meant they would go to the Independence or Liberty Bowl, and they wanted Shreveport. Illinois' main selling point was the Chicago TV market. Gunther told ESPN, "I remember being in the press box with these guys who had flown in from the Independence Bowl. The game was shown on Creative and played in front of nearly 77,000 fans." While Bevel was not sacked at all throughout the first half, he took hit after hit. Wisconsin broadcaster Matt LePay told ESPN, "Bevel got knocked all over the stadium. He kept getting up. I was thinking, dude, get off the field." He took a handful of hard hits, and by halftime, his abdomen was bothering him, but the trainers couldn't figure out what was wrong. He kept playing through it, but with 3 minutes left in the 4th quarter, he could barely give the cadence. The game was tied, and Bevel was not going to leave the field unless he was dying. He hobbled off the field and went into the locker room, where he was peeing blood. He would get an x-ray, but planned to go back into the game. That was until he passed out and was transferred to the University Hospital. It was found he had a lacerated spleen. In the final minutes, with the game tied 3-3, Illinois attempted a 54-yard field goal to take the lead. Punter Brett Larsons recalled, "He hit it well. I don't remember what the wind was doing, but as soon as he hit it, I think he thought it was good. If I remember right, he kind of put his hands in the air like, yeah, that's good. And then it just fell short. It was like a yard short or a half yard short, right in front of the crossbar." The AD went to the locker room afterwards, as he always does, but he had no idea what to say. The bowl reps, they just left. When Bevel woke up at the hospital, he asked whether Wisconsin had won or not. He was informed of the tie. He told ESPN, "It sucked. It really sucks. You don't feel like you win or lost. It feels like, what'd we do? There's no credit either way. The results were more deflating for the players on both sides. Badger fans claimed it was the worst game to ever be played in Camp Randall ever. ESPN's Adam Rittenberg wrote back in 2016, it was a game so utterly forgettable but also never forgotten because of its status as a footnote in college football history books. Yet this forgettable game would go down as the last tie in college football history. The first overtime game at the Division 1A level occurred in the Las Vegas Bowl when Toledo beat Nevada, who had played in the first overtime game at the Division 1AA level in 1979, a game they also lost 40-37. As of 2015, there were 636 overtime games played at the FBS level. While researching this video, I came across a few people who claim that college football ruined itself by getting rid of the ties. In my opinion, that is ludicrous. Football has a winner and a loser. Players want to play the game to win, and on a final possession, they want to play to win, not to play to tie. Football at the college level is beautiful because each team gets a fair shot to win, and there are no ties. I asked a few of my friends and fellow content creators whether they felt the tie should return or not. Well, Adam's response, no, I think tiebreakers would just be a mess to deal with. Scott Fisher, just a straight up no. And Andrew Coaster, this is America. We don't do ties here. While fans of the sport like my friends Preston answered, absolutely not. About 32 college football games a year go to overtime, and I love college overtime. What do you think? What is your favorite game to end in a tie? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.